What's going on YouTube? Today we are going to change things up a little bit and we are going to mess around with some acrylic paints. Haven't really used them in quite a long time, but I decided might as well try. And today's stream is going to be completely experimental. This is going to be a miniature painting. Miniature by my standards may not be the same as your standards, but this is, like I said, everything about this is experimental. This is just the back side of my Stay Wet palette. This is cotton canvas that has been super glued onto cardboard. So again, look how small it is. It's a tiny canvas. And the goal here is to use just as much paint as I need, and that's it. Let it dry, I don't care. These are cheap paints, very cheap. Artist Loft. In fact, I only had these for painting pumpkins for Halloween. Hey Tipo, hey Kathy, welcome. So as a result, this will be a fast, really fast live stream compared to what you're used to with me. At least that's the idea. So I'm mixing up a sky blue, of course a little bit of yellow into the sky. Hey William. No fumes, that's right, no fumes. At least I don't think there are any. And just the water in a plastic cup, and we're good to go. So my sky blue color, that's pretty close for a sky blue. Let me fix that for you so you can actually see what I'm painting. So go ahead, start with the top of it. And I'm gonna move my clip for just a second so I can cover this. So my sky blue, I have to cover this really fast with the quickness because as it is acrylic, it will dry in about now. So covered somewhat of the mountains. Is Walmart paints. Okay, that's all good. I mean, honestly, I don't think you can get any cheaper than Artist Loft. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. Maybe it's possible. No messy oil color palette. No, not with this because it's acrylic. I don't want to put acrylic on my oil painting materials. And one thing I will say, and I repeat, do not use oil painting brushes with acrylic. Do not do that. You will destroy your oil painting brushes. Okay, so now we have something down for the sky. Now we're gonna go and hint at the mountains. And I'm gonna use the same brush. I'm gonna have to add a little bit of white. So contrary to what I do with oil paint, with acrylic, I would rather put the palette flat. But seeing as how I can't do that and you won't see the mixtures, I'm putting down only as much as I'm going to use. So this is, by the way, I'm using yellow ochre. What red is this? I don't even know what this is. This is brilliant red, just cheap red. Brilliant red. Ivory black, at least I think that's ivory black. I don't know, it's just some acrylic black. And then ultramarine blue. The sky will drop in 3, 2, 1, done, exactly. So William wrote, is it better to use good acrylics for underpainting? I mean, acrylic is acrylic, but yeah, in theory, yeah. Better quality, in theory, will do something good. But if you were to ask me, I would just use what I have. So now, mountains. So we're going to sketch out the shape of the mountains, kind of a la Bob Ross. Of course, he would use a palette knife, but I don't want to use a palette knife. Sketch out very loosely the shape of the mountain. Last thing that I want is for the mountain to be symmetrical. So I'm kind of careful with these edges. A little bit of water. And mix up some more. So I'm assuming each pile that I'm mixing here is gonna dry. Like I'm assuming that that's going to dry. So I'm not at all concerned about the paint drying on this plastic. It's cheap. The paints are cheap. The painting itself is gonna be cheap. It's on super glued. Super glued cardboard. But it's a panel. It's a panel, and most of those panels that we have, those cheap panels that we buy, are actually mounted on some kind of composite particle board anyway, which is not that different from cardboard. So go figure, it'll last. So move this down, and now we've got some hints of the mountains, a little glimpse of mountains. Yeah, don't use your rosemary brushes, people. Don't use your expensive brushes. Use the cheapest of the cheap. And these are, believe it or not, very therapeutic. These are quite fun paintings to do because there's no pressure. I mean, of course, there's a lot of intricacy in landscapes. I mean, landscapes can be very, very complex. But when you're messing around with some cheap acrylics, cheap materials, mounted onto super glued cotton canvas onto cardboard, really not much can go wrong. Now we're going to put in the darker plane, say probably about here, thin out the paint with the H2O. We are using the medium called H2O to thin out the paint. And put in this darker plane, just like so, planes upon planes. Things that are closer to us will look darker, but this is just darker in general. Yes, there's a little bit of green in it, so we'll throw in some green, but not that detailed, not necessary. Lots of detail, not necessary at all. Okay, so that's that for that plane. Clean the brush a little bit. What do they say? Beat the devil out of the brush. Right. No, I'd rather not get paint splashed all over the place in here. A little bit of red just to brown this out. Just a smidgen. Just a little bit. More yellow. So we're going to get kind of like a dark green. A little more blue. And that's going to be a dark greenish, I guess. Somewhat of a dark green. So now this plane, test it out. Testing, 1, 2, plane. And it works, So just move this brush across. The link for this reference, by the way, is in the description box of the video. Anybody out there that can hold a paintbrush can paint this. Just like Bob Ross would say, anyone can do it. Really, anybody can paint this. You can paint this. If you've never painted before, you can paint this. Hey, William, you want to go to the Sargent exhibit, Boston? Isn't that near where Kathy? I think Kathy might be somewhere around there. So now a little bit more of the dark plane. A little bit of accidental red won't hurt anything. And now there's some planes closer to us. Say these planes here, these planes here. Of course, the road is going to be there, which is what we're about to do next. Not the road, sorry. The dirt. So a little bit of yellow with the green. Mix it right onto this because we don't care if it dries on this. It's just cheap plastic. Very cheap plastic. Doesn't matter what dries on it. Test a little corner out. That could be a little too green, so I'm going to add more yellow ochre. He's Stale Patel. Yeah, this is actually acrylic. See, I'm putting the acrylic on here. This is acrylic. I'm not using oil paint. I'm just messing around. I've said many things about acrylic in the past, but let me tell you, there are things you can do with everything. any material out there, you can do some pretty neat things. All you got to do is put the time into it, and I haven't really put that much time into acrylic, so it's fun. It's actually fun for me to enter into the unknown, which is what I'm doing. So I'm testing this out, and that's pretty good. That's the kind of the color that I want. At least it's close to the color that I want. So Kathy wrote, I can't pronounce that. The art world. You're in. Yeah, you are in Massachusetts. That was correct. So let's paint this plane, and it would be more brown, I know, but I'm going with kind of a subdued, cool color palette anyway. So, and let's edit the road so it's somewhat close to the picture. There's a curve over here. Use outlines if you're unsure of what you're painting, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just kind of having fun. Acrylic dries in about like 5 minutes, so after 5 minutes I won't be able to adjust anything, but that also means that after 5 minutes I can repaint it. So it's not that big of a deal. If I mess it up, I mess it up. It's not a big deal at all. I will be forgiven if I make a mistake. Just look at it that way. Okay, so now we're getting the road. That extreme perspective for the road. Like I said, this is a mini painting. Mini, it's a little thing. And it's on cotton canvas that's super glued onto cardboard. No pressure at all. No pressure, none necessary. So now we're gonna put a gray down for the road, and then once we do that, we'll switch into some smaller brushes, put in some details, and then call it done, because it's that fast. With acrylic, I would suggest, my humble opinion with acrylic is put down the right value first try, or at least third try. It's nowhere near as forgiving as oil paint, which is why I would never suggest using this for a portrait. Although I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again at some point in the future, because I tend to do things like that. But don't use it for portrait if you want to create something that looks like something. Let's just put it that way. So now the dark for the road, we're gonna make the road a little bit darker to push the composition, push the contrast in the composition. This, by the way, is a flat brush, so I have to use the edges carefully. Another thing you usually don't see me do is use a flat brush. And that got a little weird there, but whatever. It's all good. So spread the paint along. Now we're about to have the road pave the way for the details, which won't be that, there won't be that many details anyway. Really simple. If you've never painted before, you can paint this. If you want to share this video with someone, maybe have a paint night or something, feel free to use this video. Won't cost you anything. YouTube's free, at least for now. Who knows what happens in the future. Alright, so now we can go in with the details. Go back to the sky, and we're going to add more color contrast with a tad bit of yellow, because the sky blue has a little bit of yellow. More color contrast, and we're going to define this edge a little bit more. And again, this is just a cheap brush, cheap acrylic brush that I can get by with just fine with acrylic. Do not use oil painting materials for acrylic because you will destroy your oil painting materials. So you don't want to do that. Okay, good enough is good enough. Next thing we're going to do is add a little bit more white to it. Same thing basically. And we're going to put in the light planes of the mountains. Carefully though, because one mistake can cost you everything. You're going to have to end up repainting it if you make a huge mistake. This is totally not the same as oil paint. Oil paint allows you to make mistakes. Oil paint says it's okay, it's alright, I'm not dry. I'm not gonna dry, don't worry. Acrylic says, let's go already, let's go. I'm ready to finish this painting. So, you have to be deliberate with where you're gonna put your shapes. But if you're deliberate, you'll get it done fast. And if you're clever enough, you'll sell it for enough money to at least cover your oil change. If you have a car that needs an oil change. You know what I'm saying. If you're clever enough, you can make $1 out of this or $2. Or maybe 100, who knows. Okay, so that's good enough for some indications of light on the top side of the mountains. But what about this part? So this is going to have light as well, but it's not going to be as light. So I'm mixing right over top of a dry puddle. And these values are going to be so subtle you may not notice them. Pull it down, just make sure to not leave anything symmetrical, and you're good to go. Next, add some darker planes for the trees or whatever that stuff is. Just need a little bit more blue. I'm adding only what is necessary. Black, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre. Acrylic dries darker, by the way. Cheap acrylic dries a lot darker, I think. So I'm conscientious about that. So I'm not making this that dark. Thin out the paint with water. And these will be some darker planes, creating the illusion of stuff in the distance that has a shadow. Thanks, Tipu. So remember, acrylics dry darker. Things that are darker are closer to you. So it wouldn't make sense for something this dark to be down there. So this gives the illusion of distant planes, but still relatively close enough. Close enough that you see some definition. Next, we're going to add more definition, yet another plane. And it's going to be for the edge of the road. I'm going to add some brown. So you mix brown by creating a green and then adding some red to it. Or maybe just have a brown, I don't know. But let's test it out. Always test out your mixture first, and that's good. A little bit of water, not too much water, but just enough. And that'll create these planes. And I tell you something, tell you what. This is not a very bad idea for anyone that wants to get some painting done. Maybe you're busy, maybe you don't have much time to paint, but hey, maybe you can do something in 20 minutes. Not a bad idea. And it is small enough, it's portable. All you need is a sheet of cotton canvas and some super glue and a cardboard. It doesn't get any cheaper than that. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is add some little things here and there, little pieces of unkept dirt, basically. The valley that's a little bit darker. Now, you don't believe this is acrylic? Look at this. That's acrylic. It's like, I'm gonna dry, like now. I'm not gonna wait for you to finish your painting. I'm gonna dry. That's what I was made to do. Now we're gonna just put these rough little planes, not all over the place, but just here and there, just to indicate something there, anything. And that's all. From a distance, as long as it works out from a distance, that's all that matters. And again, if you've never painted before, if you're watching this video to help you fall asleep or something like that, because 20 minutes for a video is quite long already at this point, you can definitely do something with paint. Do this with acrylic or do this with oil paint. It's the same darn thing. Oil paint's just going to be easier because it's not going to dry. I'm not using any kind of technique with acrylic that's novel or anything like that. I could have done this wet into wet with oil paint. Same darn thing. Thin out the paint a little bit. I gotta be a little careful for my values though, so I'm gonna test out a spot. And that's good. That actually works quite well. Okay, now that gets slightly lighter, smaller, thanks to perspective. Things that are further away tend to get smaller, linear perspective. Not doing anything novel here. You could do this with oil paint. You can do this with Cobra, which is water mixable. You can do this with Rublev, which is like high-end. Old Holland, oil paint, whatever you want. Same darn thing, no different. You could do this wet into wet if you want. Now that I have these darks indicated in here, I'm gonna adjust the light sensitivity so you can see more of the details that I'm adding. Now we're gonna put in the road. Let's mix this over here. A stay wet palette would be best if you have a stay wet palette. This is the top, the lid of a stay wet palette, but I don't have the sponge or the actual paper palette. If you've never heard of a stay wet palette, it's called STA, and then wet palette. It's it keeps your acrylics wet while you're working. Hi, William. Maxfield Mountains. Is that what this is? It's from Unsplash. The link is in the description box. I think it might be Ireland. I don't know where the original reference was taken from. Now I'm gonna use a lot more paint for the lines for the street. And notice I'm not making it white. It's close to it, but not white. a little bit of water just to get the paints to flow. And hold your breath. Test it. That is way too dark. Try again. That's better. Now my road is going to end up looking smaller because of the perspective thing here, and my brush doesn't quite make that small of a mark. Good enough. Good enough. Perfect? By no means. But acrylic being the way it is, check this out. I can still fix the thickness of that line and add some stuff, some definition to the street. Just like that. I can fix that and make it look a little rough on the edges there. It's a rough road. A road that has seen better days. That's what we paint. A road that has seen better days. Alright, you know what? We're kind of almost done with it. 30 minutes to make a painting. I mean, it's alright. I mean, you could frame it. You could frame it, sell it for some money. Let's add some of those little lights that are, you know what, forget the lights. Let's add some more stuff over here. And then the age-old question, how do you know when the painting's finished? With acrylic, you could say the painting's finished when all my paint is dry on the palette. You could say the painting's finished when you gotta go back to work, or the painting's finished whenever you say it's finished. You can keep working on this indefinitely if you want to. And I'm not gonna put a big old tree here like Bob Ross would have. So I'm not that cool. He wrote, it's finished when it's undeniably overworked. Oh, come on now, you're not gonna overwork the painting. Now remember, overworking is a myth. There is no overworking. You can always return to a painting no matter what. Unless you varnish it, then you can't. But as long as you haven't varnished it or something happened to it, you can always return to it. Don't worry about overworking. I'll tell you what, this might be a done deal for this one. At about 30 minutes. It's quite a short time. I'm used to taking a lot longer. But this was an experiment. So, as an experiment, I'd say it went alright. So, look at that. You can paint something like this pretty fast. Again, the back is cardboard. Yeah, William, I can help you go to sleep if you want to. So this is just an idea for you, for everyone. If you want to do a mini landscape and you don't have a lot of time to paint, and for some reason you're using acrylic paints, you can give this a try. So very fast. The reference is in the description box of the video. Now again, it's not a highly detailed portrait like something like this would be, but you can do this. If you want to teach a class, you can use this. You can use this to teach a class. If you want to give a public demo somewhere, you can do this. This is something that you can use. It's quite simple. It's effective. And what can I say? It's the same thing with acrylic or oil paint. Whatever you use, it's the same darn process. I didn't use any type of secret layering technique or anything like that. Even if this was all wet, see, this is dry. This is acrylic. This is definitely acrylic. Now, even if this was oil paint, it's the same darn thing. The only thing is, with acrylic, I cannot make mistakes. Thanks, Christina. There you go, Kathy. Yeah, this is Christmas presents done dirt cheap. I think she found me out. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is, yeah, you want to give a Christmas present, you want to paint something real fast? Then do it. I mean, get this done in 2 seconds. Guess what? It's like that, like that, like that, like that. Paint it the same day, sign it, it's dry, put it in wrapping paper, and you're done. Done. Save yourself a lot of money with Christmas presents, holiday presents. Save yourself tons of money. Now, this would be the end of this stream, though it seems to be too fast to be the ending of the stream, but I guess it is what it is. Let me know if you like this video. I know it's shorter, I'm sorry. The painting was completed a little too fast, but it is what it is. It's acrylic. I could put more for the sky and I could do more things, but it doesn't really need it. This has the sketch kind of look. It's a thumbnail sketch, if you will. You can make a bigger version of it or whatever. But enough of my rambling. This will be the point where I'll ask you if you have any last minute questions. Next time we will return to oil paints. Most likely start another portrait, something that you're used to, that involves drawing and all that stuff. So this will be the point where I'll ask if there are any last minute questions. Any last minute questions? And if you like this video, if you like this type of painting, let me know. We can do these from time to time. I am not someone that likes to do highly realistic landscapes. I like Monet. Like what's his Constable. I like more expressive landscapes. Not so much the I don't know. Not so much the overly realistic landscapes. Hey, Christina, no, I've never worked with watercolor, but I mean I could buy some and just mess around with it. Never used it before, but it's a possibility. Yeah, I can buy some watercolors in the future. I'd probably have to buy the paper for it though. And try it out. Probably do some landscapes with it. All right. So looks like there are no last minute questions. Next time we will return to what you're used to. We're gonna return to a portrait. We're gonna maybe do a Rembrandt or something. Who knows? Something more realistic, what you're used to with oil paint. Forgive me if this was not what you were expecting, but it was a fun experiment for me. Once again, I wish you all the very best in all of your artwork. And as always, if you're interested in taking online classes with me, please check out the links in the description box of this video. You have a great night too, Kazi. Have a great night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it may be. I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you on the next one.